It's 9 o'clock, and we are calling to order the Planning Director's hearing of May 25th, 2022. My name is Robert Manford, and I'm the hearing officer for today's agenda on behalf of and delegated by the Director of Planning, Building and Code Enforcement, Mr. Christopher Burton. This meeting is being held via Zoom conference call due to the COVID-19 crisis. Members of the public may participate by following the instructions listed on page 2 of the agenda. If you would like to provide public comment, you have two methods to do so. First, for participants who joined electronically and have audio input available on their computer or smartphone, they can use the raise hand feature in Zoom during the agenda item that they would like to speak to, or click *9 on their phone. Please remember to keep your raise hand feature on until planning support staff identifies your turn to speak. During the meeting, please call 408-535-3505. Again, the phone number is 408-535-3505, or email planning support staff at sanjoseca.gov. Again, planning support staff, which is one word, at sanjoseca.gov, and identify your name that is listed on Zoom, phone number that you like to call into Zoom with, and what item or items that you like to speak on. All members of the public will remain on mute until the individual identifies they would like to speak and they are unmuted. Planning support staff will identify you by name when it's your turn to speak. At that time, you'll be unmuted and can provide comment for the allotted period of time. If you exceed your allotted time, you may be muted so we can move on to the next speaker. Please note the following. I will identify each project as described on the agenda. For those items on the consent calendar, I will ask if anyone wishes to speak on the item. If a separate discussion is warranted, I'll move the item to the public hearing portion of the agenda. If a separate discussion is not needed, the item will remain on the consent calendar for approval. For those items listed under public hearing, I'll ask staff to provide a brief report. The applicant or their representative who wishes to speak on the item will have up to 5 minutes to speak and should identify themselves by stating their name for the record. After the applicant or their representative has spoken, any member of the public who wishes to speak on the item may provide testimony for up to 2 minutes per speaker, either for or against the projects. All speakers are required to state their name for the record. Following comments from the public, the applicant may make additional remarks for up to 5 minutes. I will then close the public hearing and I may ask staff to answer questions, respond to comments made by the applicant or the public, or further discuss the item. I will then take action on the item. If you challenge these land use decisions in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised at this public hearing or in written correspondence delivered to the city at or prior to this public hearing. The planning director's actions on agenda items will be final when the permit is signed and mailed, unless the permit or the environmental clearance determination is appealed. The planning director's actions on the permits are appealable in accordance with the requirements of Title 20 of the city's municipal code, which is the zoning code. The planning director's actions on the environmental review for the permits under the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA, are separately appealable in accordance with the requirements of Title 21 of the city's municipal code, environmental clearance. Before we begin, I want to remind members of the public to follow our code of conduct at all meetings. This includes commenting on the specific agenda item only. Public speakers will not engage in a conversation with the hearing officer or staff. The hearing officer, staff, and the public are expected to refrain from abusive language. Repeated failure to comply with the code of conduct which will disturb, disrupt, or impede the orderly conduct of this meeting may result in removal from the meeting. This meeting of the director hearing will now come to order. We will begin with today's order of business, starting with the matter of deferrals. Any item scheduled for hearing this morning for which deferral to a future meeting date is being requested will be moved to this portion of the agenda and considered on the matter of deferral. I will identify any items to be deferred and ask for comments from the audience. If you want to change any of the deferral dates or speak to the question of deferring these or any other items, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom or click *9 to raise a hand to speak. I will now open the public hearing. The following items are proposed for deferral. Item number 2A, SF22-008, a single family house permit to allow the existing exterior stucco that was applied to the exterior walls of a residence listed on the city's historic resource inventory without benefits of permits located at 875 State Street within the city's council district 3. Staff recommendation is dropping and renoticing for a later date. I will now ask staff if there is any preferred date for this request. Is Jason Lee on now?
Hearing officer, yeah, there's no preferred date. The applicant is the request is to recommendations to be dropped and renoticed for a later date to be determined.
Okay, so that later date will be determined. We don't have to determine a date right now. Is that correct?
Right. That's correct.
So then I will also check, is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak to this item? Support staff, do we have any hands raised or have you been contacted?
No, and I'm not seeing any hands, Robert.
Okay, thank you, Ian. So hearing or seeing none, item number 2A SF 22-008 is hereby deferred and will be renoticed for a later date, which will also be made available to the public. Is there any other person in the audience or staff who wishes to speak on deferring any item on this agenda or any item with regards to deferral? Support staff, have you been contacted? I think I do see, that must be me. Support staff, have you been contacted?
No, we have not.
Okay, thank you. So hearing or seeing none, the matter of deferral is now closed and we will move on to the consent calendar items, which is item number 3 on the agenda. There will be no separate discussion of individual consent calendar items as they are considered to be routine and will be considered in one action unless an item is removed to the public hearing calendar for a separate discussion by the hearing officer. The public may comment on the entire consent calendar and any items removed from the consent calendar by the hearing officer. If you wish to speak on one of these items, please use the raise hand feature in Zoom or click *9 to raise a hand to speak. We do have 2 items on the consent calendar today. These are item number 3A, H21-055. It's a site development permit to allow site modifications to an existing parking lot, including relocating the existing standard vehicular parking stalls to the area near Trimble Road, reconfiguring the northeast portion of the site to accommodate approximately 167 van storage stalls, restriping the parking lot along Cruise Drive, installing fences to enclose the new van storage area, and 2 new vehicular gates at Cruise Drive, and removing 18 ordinance-sized trees and 22 non-ordinance-sized trees on a 17.4-acre site located at 696 Trimble Road within the city's council district 4. Staff recommendation is the consideration of the SEQA exemption and approval of the site development permit. Do we have anyone in the audience or staff that wishes to speak to this particular item, number 3A, H21-055? Support staff, do we have any raised hand or have you been contacted?
No, and no, hearing officer.
Thank you, Ian. We'll move on to the next item on the consent calendar, which is item number 3B, SP 21-032. It's a special use permit to allow the removal of 8 non-ordinance-sized trees for the conversion of approximately 5,645 square feet of office space to a daycare serving up to 44 children, and to allow the construction of an approximately 2,680 square foot outdoor play area at an existing office building on an approximately 9.0 gross acre site located on the northeast corner of Reader Park Drive and East Broadcourt Road, specifically 1290 Reader Park within the city's council district 4. Staff recommendation is the consideration of the SEQA exemption and approval of the special use permit. Do we have anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to this item number 3B, SP 21032? Support staff, do we have any raised hand or have you been contacted?
No, and no, hearing officer.
Thank you. So hearing or seeing none, the matter of deferral is now closed and we will move on to the consent calendar items, which is item number 3C, SP 21-033. It's a special use permit to allow the removal of 8 non-ordinance-sized trees for the conversion of approximately 5,645 square feet of office space to a daycare serving up to 44 children, and to allow the construction of an approximately 9.0 gross acre site located on the northeast corner of Reader Park Drive and East Broadcourt Road, specifically 1290 Reader Park within the city's council district 4. Staff recommendation is the consideration of the SEQA exemption and approval of the special use permit. Do we have anyone in the audience that wishes to speak to this item number 3B, SP 21-032?
Not seeing any raised hands.
Thank you. So hearing or seeing none, item number 3A, H21-055, and item number 3B, SP 21-032 are hereby approved. So both items on the consent calendar are approved. Consent calendar is now closed, and we'll move on to the public hearing component of this agenda. We do have one item on the public hearing, which is item number 4A, PD 21-016. It's a planned development permit to allow the construction of an approximately 249,230 square foot warehouse distribution building and maintaining an existing previously approved planned development permit, file number PD 13-012, on an approximately 10.47 gross acre site located at 4553 North 1st Street within the City's Council District 4. Staff recommendation is to consider the determination of consistency with the 2000 Cisco Site 6 final environmental impact report in accordance with CEQA and approval of the planned development permit. I will now call on staff to make a brief presentation. John 2.
Good morning, hearing officer. John 2, supervising planner and project manager for the subject property. Since the original posting of the permit on May 11th, there have been some verbiage corrections to the public works condition numbers. 32B1, transportation, updating the reference documents and dates. 32I1 and 32I2, street improvements that have been updating, clarifying the driveway width. And 32I61 and 32I62, which VTA, to reflect VTA's request for the improvements to the bus shelter benches. All the revisions were updated and posted last Wednesday, May 18th, on the hearing agenda. The project before you today is for a planned development permit to allow the construction of an approximately 230 square feet warehouse distribution building and maintaining the existing previously approved planned development permit, file number PD 13-012, on approximately 10.47 gross acre site. The site is currently vacant. The site's located in a planned development zoning district. It is in the combined industrial commercial designation on both the Alviso master plan and the general plan, transportation land use diagram, and as analyzed in the permit, the project is consistent with the development standards of the PD zoning, the CIC land use, and design criteria of the Alviso master plan. The project includes significant improvements to the public right-of-way with additional sidewalks, street infrastructure, additional trees and landscaping. The design and materials and scale of the project is consistent with the applicable policies. In accordance with CEQA, a determination of consistency with the Cisco System Incorporated Site 6 EIR was prepared for the project. Staff analyzed, reviewed the proposed project, and concluded that the second Harvest Food Bank would not result in new significant impacts beyond those analyzed in the Cisco Site 6 EIR. Staff followed the City Council Outreach Policy 6-30. Project was formally noticed at a radius of 1,000 feet. And on-site signs have been posted on the project frontage, and a community meeting was held on November 29th, 2021. Therefore, based on the analysis in the permit, staff recommends that the project be approved.
Thank you, John. Is the project applicant available, and would they like to speak?
Nolan, oh, go ahead.
Yes, this is Nolan Granberry. Can I ask that Diane Baker Hayward be allowed access to share our presentation while I go through it?
Yes, please. Ian, can you please allow access to Mr. Nolan Granberry?
Yes. I'm giving it to Diane. Is that right, Nolan?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Shall I begin?
Yes, please go ahead. And you
Okay.
have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. I'm Nolan Granberry, Chief Financial Officer of Second Harvest, Silicon Valley. I'm here today with Diane Baker Hayward, who manages our community outreach, and Margot Bradish, our land use counsel. I'd like to thank the city for scheduling the hearing today and would like to begin with a little background about our organization. Since our founding in 1974, our mission has been simple: lead our community to ensure that anyone who needs a healthy meal can get one. Today, we remain committed to building a hunger-free community now and for the future. I want to start by explaining how we work. We are the food bank that serves Santa Clara and San Mateo counties. We distribute free groceries to families through our network of over 300 partners at over 900 sites located throughout both counties, including schools, community centers, low-income housing sites, and faith-based organizations. If you see food being provided by a nonprofit in either county, they are likely getting that food at no cost from Second Harvest. Even before COVID-19, we had a food insecurity crisis in Silicon Valley. Second Harvest was providing food to over 250,000 people every month, as so many of our neighbors struggled to be able to meet their basic needs, like housing, and still afford food. When shelter in place went into effect in March 2020, and so many people found themselves suddenly out of work and without any income, the need for our services skyrocketed. In a matter of weeks, we had to double the amount of food we were providing. Even though it may feel like things are getting somewhat back to normal, the economic crisis created by the pandemic has pushed many families deeper into poverty and caused others to seek food assistance for the very first time. Second Harvest is continuing to serve over 400,000 people every month, 60% more people than we served pre-pandemic. As you can see on the chart, for the past couple of months, the number of people we are serving is trending back up again, pretty dramatically, as more people in our community are struggling with higher prices for food and fuel. We know from decades of experience serving the community and responding to crisis that it will take a long time for families to recover from the economic devastation of this pandemic, so we are anticipating providing this level of service for the foreseeable future. Our new home in Alviso will give us the opportunity to unify our operations and ensure food insecurity for our community for the long term. We have been working in Alviso for more than 30 years with our community partners, Our Lady Star of the Sea and Redemption Church, to distribute fresh, nutritious food directly to the community. We're excited to locate our new home in Alviso and look forward to being a part of the community for decades to come. Here's a little background on the site. The site is already approved for development of commercial use buildings of comparable square footage, including one 3-story and 5-story building that would accommodate about 750 workers. Again, that is what the site is currently approved for. Second Harvest's new home would be 2 single-story buildings connected by an administrative building with mezzanine space. This is rather than the 3-story and 5-story buildings that are currently approved for the site. When food is delivered to the site, a combination of volunteers and staff unload, sort, repack the food into boxes to go to our partner sites for distribution to the community. Here's a view from North First Street to give you a sense of the scale and architecture. And here's another view of the entry to the building. Again, we're excited to locate our new home in Alviso and look forward to partnering with our neighbors and serving the community for decades to come. With that, I'll stop here and turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Granberry. So, Pastor, do we have any other person in the audience that wishes to speak? Or have you been contacted?
Hearing officer, I'm seeing one hand from Marcos.
Can you please unmute them and have them speak?
Marcos, you should be unmuted.
Marcos, you have 2 minutes. Marcos, you have 2 minutes to speak. Please unmute yourself. Is Marco still online? Let's go to the next speaker if there's anyone else who wishes to speak.
Looks like Marcus has left. I'm not seeing any other hands.
Okay.
One more from Mark Espinoza, actually.
Can you unmute them?
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Marcus.
Okay, hello. My name is Marcos Espinoza. I'm a member of the community of Alviso. I'm involved in some of the nonprofits around there, and I have some things about this project. So the first one is, the city has prepared a 154-page initial study that has not been circulated, or has now. But the initial study reports that the project will reduce 888 daily vehicle trips, including 100 heavy diesel trucks trips. 45 of the trucks would be diesel burning, top mounted refrigeration units. Thus, these will be sufficient new emissions of diesel exhaust in the area. The initial study reports that there are sensitive receptors, including school children aged 3 to 11 at George Main School, just 170 feet from the site, who will be impacted by these emissions during both construction and operation of the project. There is no indication that the 2000 Cisco EIR ever included a health risk assessment to evaluate the excess cancer risk caused by these emissions. Thus, the initial study includes an entirely new, never before seen health risk assessment for the project's diesel emissions impact on the nearby sensitive receptors. This risk assessment has not been circulated for public review and cannot be affected and comment by affected community members in Alviso. It is wrong and a violation of CEQA that the city expects us to digest all of these diesel's emissions on our nearby sensitive receptors. This risk assessment has not been circulated for public review by affected community members and is wrong, and the city is a violation. This is a significant new information concerning the changes to the original Cisco project and its circumstances that should be circulated for review and comment either as a new EIR or a negative declaration under CEQA. So I just want to get back into the Cisco EIR. That was done over 20 years ago, and there's new techniques that they use nowadays and new ways that they could analyze the effects of diesel exhaust. And I hope that the city could, look at these studies and see, there's kids that can't defend themselves and stand up for themselves that are going to be most affected by this project due to being in such close proximity. And I had a question for the developers. Why are they moving from their other location less than a mile away, which has over 50 diesel trucks that park there? And, they operate at 6 a.m. and they're parked there.
Thank you, Marcus. Do we have any other person in the audience that wishes to speak?
I'm seeing one hand from Mark Espinoza, who may be the same person.
Mark Espinoza, can you confirm whether you are the same Marcus Espinoza? Support staff, can you please unmute Mark Espinoza?
Hi, Mark Espinoza here, Alviso resident. Can you hear me?
Can you please confirm whether you are the same Marcus?
No, I'm not. I am not the same.
Thank you.
Yeah, I also want to make a comment that, there may not be a cost to the people you serve, but the cost here is the destruction of a small community, the health impacts of innocent children, and, a 24-hour loading dock facility, distribution center is not something a small town character ideal. That's something that Alviso never intended in its future. That's why we challenged the Trimble Crow project that was looking at 229 loading docks. So definitely we are going to challenge this. This is something that is not going to just be able to come into Alviso and destroy our community. And there are a lot of information on your EIRs and other information, environmental data that you produce that is not adequate. And we are asking the hearing director to not approve this project. And, we need more studies. And in fact, I believe a new EIR would be efficient for this type of project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Support staff, do we have any other commenting party that wishes to speak or comment on the project?
I'm not seeing any more hands.
Okay, I'll just wait for a few moments before I close the public hearing. Can you please check again whether you've been contacted or there is any entity that have raised their hands?
Looks like a no to both, hearing officer.
None, right? Okay.
Correct, none.
So thank you. I will go ahead and close the public hearing and then ask staff to respond to some of the issues raised by Marcos Espinoza and Mark Espinoza. Cassandra?
Good morning, hearing officer Cassandra Vandersweep, the environmental planning project manager with planning, building, and code enforcement. I wanted to address both the comment about public circulation as well as the health risk assessment. So firstly, pursuant to section 15162 of CEQA, a determination of consistency with the Cisco Systems Inc. Site 6 EIR was prepared, and above and beyond CEQA's requirements, an email of its availability was sent on Monday, May 16, 2022, to notify interested parties of the availability of the determination of consistency. The CEQA statute and guidelines have no posting requirements or public circulation requirements, and therefore the CEQA determination email was provided above and beyond requirements of CEQA. Additionally, as part of staff's analysis of the project and conclusion of the determination of consistency, a health risk assessment was prepared for the proposed project to determine if air impacts from the project would impact sensitive receptors, including the mentioned school and the public comments. The health risk assessment determined that the proposed project would not exceed the Bay Area Air Quality Management District's thresholds for cancer, and overall the project was determined to be consistent with the analysis in the original 2000 Cisco Site 6 EIR. I am available for any additional questions.
Thank you. Will the applicant also, does the applicant wish to answer any of the issues raised or speak to that? Because I know one of the commenting parties asked the applicant why they are moving from their current location to the proposed location. So an answer to that would be very helpful. Mr. Nolan, would you please respond to that? Please unmute yourself.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yes. In response to the campus that's further down First Street, we do have 3 sites that currently serve Santa Clara and San Mateo County. And as I mentioned in my earlier comments that we were serving, we've gone from serving over 250,000 to serving over 400,000 clients a month. The ability to operate the 3 sites efficiently is a challenge, and our opportunity to move into Alviso will allow for us to unify our 3 sites to support the increased activity.
Thank you.
Allow us to better serve the community.
Thank you, Nolan. And I have a question for staff. one of the commenting parties raised the fact that the EIR that for the project was prepared 20 years ago. Over the past 20 years, there's been two major changes to the to state law. One is AB 32 Global Warming Solutions Act, and the other one is SB 743 that basically removes the LOS analysis and requires that we do VMT. Can staff take us through how that was addressed as part of the EIR, thereby making the DOC appropriate? I see we do have a DOT, a public works staff here too, so if they can also chime in, that would be helpful.
I can begin with the greenhouse gas analysis. So as part of the initial study prepared in support of the determination of consistency, the project did complete a greenhouse gas reduction compliance checklist, which is the city's current way to analyze projects for their conformance with the GHG reduction strategy, which is a citywide approach to GHG reductions. And the project was able to meet the checklist, and therefore was determined that it would not have any significant impacts. It would be a less than significant impact, which would be the same as that Cisco site EIR.
Thank you.
Sorry, good morning. This is Manchi Benwait with Department of Public Works. So as far as the traffic analysis goes, when our council policy 5-1 was adopted, that changed as from looking at LOS to vehicle miles traveled, we included a pipeline provision that allowed for the use of prior traffic level of service policy, council policy 5-3, after the effective date for council policy 5-1, provided that the project was approved prior to the effective date and that there were no substantial changes to the project as defined in California Public Resources Code, section 21166 and CEQA guidelines sections 15162-15164. So this project falls under under those provisions, and therefore the project was able to use previous EIR for looking at traffic impacts. And so although the current proposed project varies somewhat from the previous approvals, the warehouse distribution space would generate no more trips than what was previously approved under the office and R&D space during the AM and PM peak hours. And therefore, the project would not result in a greater impact to the transportation system than what was originally analyzed in the Cisco EIR. Thank you.
Thank you for the thorough response, both Cassandra and Manjit. Does staff wish to add any other information that would be helpful in making a decision on the project? David, did you have your hand up, David Keon? Are you okay?
No, I don't have my hand up.
Okay, good. And I also wanted to check whether the applicant wishes to provide any additional information.
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you very much. So having heard from staff and then the concerns raised by both Mark Espinoza and Marcus Espinoza and responses from staff and the applicant, I believe I do have enough information to make a decision here. First, with regards to the public circulation, the secret documentation that was prepared, which I deem appropriate, was not required to be sent out for public circulation, but staff did that going above and beyond secret requirements. Secondly, this project was deferred from last week, and it was upon request from the community and agreement by the applicant for this to be deferred so that any additional information that may not have been available to the public, although not required, will be made available and the public will be given time to review those, which that has occurred. And so thanks to the applicant and thanks to staff as well. But in general, this is a site that has already been approved for development, and the changes are occurring on the same footprint. All the requirements for thorough, adequate, legally defensible analysis have been met, And so on that note, based on the evidence before me, project number PD 21-016 is hereby approved. And then the public hearing will move on to adjournment. So this concludes the planning director hearing for May 25th, 2022. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming, and please be safe out there. This meeting is hereby adjourned at 9:35 a.m. Thanks again.